So first of all, welcome here. I'm Stefano Costa. Here is a picture representing very well what I am. I am passionate about consulting, cybersecurity, and innovation. By the way, I'm also passionate about sailing, which is also one of the reasons why I'm here, because sailing and mountaineering means being passionate about asking help to other people, learning from other people. And so this is an explanation why I'm also passionate about consulting. So I belong to Bluewind SRL. Bluewind is a consulting company located in North Italy with offices in Milano and Castelfranco Veneto. So we are located both in Lombardia and Veneto. And this is a consulting company working for corporations in Europe, US, India, China, and we are into functional safety, cybersecurity, and machine learning for embedded devices. So we help corporations developing their products, and we work mainly on the software and hardware side of the embedded devices. We are a group of 20 people. We are growing, we are hiring, by the way, and we are working, of course, together also with Zappi Group for several operations. So this is my program for this talk. First of all, we will talk a little bit about the purpose of this talk. We will switch to a brief introduction to cybersecurity, which means what do we mean when we talk about cybersecurity, generally speaking, and more in depth related to the highway vehicles. The reasons for cybersecurity. Why should we want to put cybersecurity, so an additional effort in the development of the electronic part of off-road of highway vehicles, and then in the end, of course, the wrap up of everything. So what are we learning? What have we learned? And question and answers, of course. The purpose of this talk. So is this aimed at informing? Yes, a little bit. We are trying to inform you about some practical stuff, about some laws, about some regulations, about engineering standards. But this is not the main purpose of the talk. Am I trying to convince you that using somehow cybersecurity gives any advantage? Yes, I'm also trying to convince, but this again is not the main aim. Am I trying to persuade? Am I trying to, I would say, to tell you that you will live in a better world by using cybersecurity? Of course, no. Am I trying to entertain? Yeah, of course, engineering is not something that we should do forever, during the entire life, during the entire day. So yeah, entertaining is also an issue, but yeah, the first thing that I'm trying to do here is inspiring and learning from you. So during the question and answer, I will also try to learn a little bit from your use cases and have information about what you did understand from my talk. So inspiring is my first aim, and inspiring means, for me, in this situation, it means trying to give you some topics and short keywords that you will find useful when you read something about it, when you hear about cybersecurity, connecting the dots. The headline of this talk, let's go a little bit more into what I'm trying to explain. The headline here is a product with cybersecurity by design is less expensive during its life. This is very important. A product, of course, we are speaking about product with some electronics inside. And I think that all people listening here is doing engineering and product development with electronic inside is less expensive, having cybersecurity by design embedded in its idea of development. This is a strong assumption, and I will try to go down to this conclusion. So a little bit of back to basics about cybersecurity, of course. Just a little bit more about cybersecurity, because we hear about cybersecurity, we hear about websites and services, cloud services breached sometimes with password being stolen, with identities being replicated, money being stolen by trying to go inside crypto exchange, Bitcoin stuff, and so on and so forth. But from my point of view, from our point of view, and also from your point of view, cybersecurity is more about integrity of the intended behavior. Okay, this one that I'm showing here is a Volvo truck. I don't know if this is real. I think it is something like marketing stuff, or maybe it does exist as a development device or something like this. This is an edge case, but integrity of intended behavior is the most important thing about cybersecurity when we speak about off-highway vehicles and, generally speaking, complex and harmful devices and products. The integrity of intended behavior means I'm building something, I'm developing something, I'm putting electronics and software inside that something, and it will behave as intended even when submitted to the forces of market, evil, people, or errors from someone. And cybersecurity is one fundamental part of this way of thinking. Cybersecurity, in a sentence, here, as we are speaking about the products we are focusing on today, is a way for achieving integrity of intended behavior. Not the only one, not the only requirement. We also need to think about functional safety, for instance, and to a range of measures during the development in order to be sure that the product will behave as intended. But cybersecurity is one of the important things. This is my estimation based on reading around and putting together numbers. And I'm not doing the wrong calculation if I say that an estimated 90% of the products based on electronic systems that we use every day, like the computer I'm using or the camera I'm using, which is not working today, by the way, an estimated 90% of those products based on electronic system potentially behaves in the wrong way due to some fault or corruption. Here we're speaking about memory corruption, something like this, an intended tampering by an evil actor. So someone going inside the product and trying to make it behave differently, and wrong operations by humans. Everything listed here relates somehow to cybersecurity, meaning a way for preventing that the product start behaving differently. And the most important part of the sentence is without this being detected and avoided. So fault, corruption of memory is something that cybersecurity can prevent. And intended tampering by an evil actor is the most common way of thinking about cybersecurity. And wrong operations by humans, we will see a little bit later, is also important from this point of view. And I'm also adding here a small, the first page of a paper that appeared recently. This paper is an academic study about the possibility that I'm detecting the presence of a malware inside the product just by listening and examining the electromagnetic signals coming out of the electronic part of this product. This is a defense against a malware, but it's also a very good and clear indication that the interaction between the product and what's outside of the product is very, very important from a cybersecurity point of view. So what's cybersecurity? As a definition, citing here Dr. Christoph Parr, a university professor teaching cybersecurity in this university, which is located in the United States, but he comes from Germany. Cybersecurity uses the science, so the logic and the mathematics of cryptology. And cryptology is based on two different branches. The first one is cryptography. Cryptography is the design phase. So designing a product in order to avoid that an evil can steal secrets, can modify, can delete things. So cryptography is the science of designing something robust enough in order to prevent that someone can go into the product and starts doing something wrong. We will see a little bit later what an evil is actually, which is not always an evil person, a bad person. It is always an error from someone. And the second branch of cryptology is cryptanalysis, the validation phase. So when I design a product which is robust enough in order to avoid that someone can get into the product and steal something, modifies and delays, I also need to demonstrate that this is really done correctly. So trying to behave as an evil is the validation phase, and this is under the cryptanalysis branch of cryptology. So back to basics, cybersecurity means designing a system using cryptography and demonstrating that the system is robust using cryptanalysis. I hope it's clear up to now that the science and the best practice of cybersecurity is not that simple, not that complicated. It's another branch of engineering. How to design a product that's robust enough, in other words. I don't know, Mirko and Valentina, if I need to stop sometimes in order to collect questions, or do you prefer to have questions in the end, as you want?
We can do at the end, thank you.
We can do it in the end?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So, but who is the evil, actually? Who is the evil? Because when we hear about cybersecurity, in our mind, this is some gang of bad actors trying to steal something. The evils, when we speak about cybersecurity of products, is very often something totally different. I want to tell you two stories today about poor cryptography. And please believe me, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not saying, okay, this company is doing something wrong. I'm not saying it could have been done better. This is something that might happen to myself, to yourself, to anyone while designing a complex product. While we put our complex products on the market, we can do errors, small errors, big errors, and we just need to learn from what's done in the past. So welcome to the future where your microwave thinks it's a steam oven. What's happening here? This is something that happened recently, I think less than 1 month ago. This is a very nice and luxury oven. It's a microwave oven sold by a company here in Europe, and I think also in the United States. And this oven is connected to the internet. It's constantly connected to the internet. And the oven has the ability, the microwave oven, is able to upgrade the software by itself. So it will check every day or every week, I don't know how often, for new releases of the firmware and download the firmware and upgrade with new features, new stuff, new something, and also perhaps correction of errors potentially. What happened recently was that I know, but I cannot tell exactly how. Of course, what happened is that a new release of the firmware was released that was really intended for a steam oven, so a totally different product, and it was directed to a range of microwave ovens on the market, so that some hundreds of products on the market were totally bricked after this upgrade, and they are now in need for a direct visit of the technicians in order to unlock and load the correct firmware and so on and so forth. So this is one of the things that may happen, and why I am telling this story in a cryptography talk, because one of the things that you can do using the right algorithms, the right protocols, the right way of designing a connected system is being sure that in any case, even if someone is doing something wrong at the production site or in the engineering side, you will never be able to upload some software version which is not intended for that product. This is what happened. Someone did something wrong. Perhaps it was a kind of a product code that was replicated between two different product lines or something like this. And simply the firmware version was appeared to be for this product while it was for another product. This is something that's prevented by using the right approach from a cryptography point of view to the attribution of identity to software versions and software binaries. And this is very embarrassing, by the way, because it means breaking a product which is already on the market and that was sold with the feature of being able to upgrade in the field. This is the second story I want to tell you today. This is about vehicles. So not off-highway vehicles, but the normal vehicles we use every day. This is the Honda Civic and a lot of models out of the Honda Civic between 2016 and 2020. What's happening here is that someone discovered that during the dialogue, during the conversation between the remote you use for opening the doors and for starting the engine, during the conversation between the remote and the car, there is a repetition of messages, which is always the same when you try to open the door or start the engine. So if you listen to the conversation between the remote and the car and you reply the conversation on a different car, you open the door again and you start the engine again. Now there is some discussion between people discovering that and publishing the proof of concept, and the manufacturer about the possibility that this is really done on the wild or not. But okay, the weakness is there. Again, the intended behavior of a remote is that I'm able to open only my car, and this is what's happening actually. And it is not an intended behavior that someone can listen to this conversation and reply the same conversation in order to open the door of another car. So again, this is not really about, stealing something. Yes, you can perhaps try to steal the vehicle, but you can steal it anyway by opening the door mechanically. I mean, this is not a big issue. This is more about I would say, revealing that the cryptography and the kind of protocol in use here is really, really very weak. So if this is weak, what should I think about the rest of the software that goes inside this model of this car? This is the main point. And so, from the technical point of view, enforcing security of a product means using some measures during the design of the product. Like, I don't want to go too much into technical stuff here. This is not the point. I just want to remember that using cryptography by design means using strong ciphers between parties, strong ciphers in conversation between the remote and the car, between the memory and the microcontroller, between parts of the product and between parts that compose the product. It means using secure silicon vaults for secrets. So while designing the electronic part of a product, I need to be sure that I have the secure vaults, a special part of the components where I can put secrets and keys inside. And the hardware should be designed in order to resist to side attacks. Side attacks means attacks that are performed using some kind of connection with the electronic, or using some radio communication channel, or using some way of interacting using electromagnetic fields. Which means again that I don't need to be the evil for if it's not the evil that wants to do this, not only the evil actor, it is also something that might happen in the wild for during normal operations due to some interference with other electronic parts, of course. And security should also evolve in time, because when I put security in a product, I'm thinking of a product that will be on the market for 5 years, 10 years perhaps, and in 5 or 10 years, the possibility of evil actors evolve. The one for all is quantum and post-quantum cryptography. Vulnerabilities emerge and are published. Think about the Honda or the Honda car we were speaking about before, the Owen. This is published, is in the wild. It is known by everyone. And last but not the last, what about the end of life of a product? When I want to be sure that the product reaches the end of life and it is not able to do some harmful thing in the end, I need to be sure that I have the right way of decommissioning the product, also from a cybersecurity point of view. So let's switch to something about the reasons for cybersecurity. Yeah, okay, I know I've given plenty of reasons in the second part of my talk. Of course, reputation is one of those, security by design, but now we will go more in detail about the practical reasons for adopting cybersecurity when we design a product which is either connected, always connected, or potentially connected to some external device and to the internet. First of all, the 3L in cybersecurity for off-highway vehicles are ledger, money, liability, and legal. Ledger. So I want to tell you that designing a product without cybersecurity might cost something around 1. This is the rule of 1 to 5. So let's speak about something that is I don't know, medium complexity. It costs $100,000 to be designed. We're speaking about perhaps the electronic part of a complex product like a truck or the electronic part, a small electronic part of a vehicle or something like this. $100,000 is the normal process of designing the product without cybersecurity on board. The same product adding cybersecurity might cost up to double that, $2,000 to $200,000. Okay, this is a rough estimate. It is a little bit on the high side, a little bit on the pessimistic side, I would tell you, but not so far from the reality. And as always, this means the first time I do this. Maybe I have a range of products. I need to invest a little bit more on cybersecurity the first time, and then I will replicate the same investment without paying the same amount of money. But this is in order to have an idea. We can tell that designing a product without security or with security might mean doubling the cost. So, should I do it? No, from a ledger and from a money point of view, because I'm putting more money on the product, and I'm not sure if this is worth doing. But the interesting part is the life cycle cost of a product without security or with pure security might be up to 5 times the cost of a product without security, and a little bit more than double the cost of a product with security. So we should compare not the 100 with 200, but we should compare the 200 with the 500. And why 500? Because this is, of course, a slogan and kind of a marketing estimate, but not far from reality. And the main reason why it's very expensive is that sometimes I need to go down to the market and exchange the products and do something manually on the product in order to remediate from attacks. Sometimes I need to perhaps maybe substitute products. Sometimes I have a problem with the reputation of my company. Okay, a lot of big issues if I don't have cybersecurity designed inside my products. So this is very similar, for whom this sounds familiar, this is very similar to functional safety. Functional safety is sometimes based on the same proportions. So I need to spend double the money for having functional safety in place, but then I will spend a lot more if I don't have functional safety. But here, there is the added problem of reputation. Reputation with cybersecurity is really a big issue. So, should we wait for regulations in order to decide that we want cybersecurity in our next products, or should we base our decision on the ledger, on the money? Okay, liability. So let's talk a little bit more about liability. Who's held liable for a defective product? The owner of the product, or the design engineer of the product, or the producer, the manufacturer of the product? It used to be very difficult to decide. And when we speak about a very complex product that can be modified by some evil actor, let's think about an industrial plant where I can go in the network and modify the behavior of the machinery. Who's responsible for this? Who's liable for this that can lead to very serious consequences? It used to be very difficult to decide until around 2000, and after a lot of very big and very sad disaster, there is now a new scenario. The manufacturer, as a legal entity, is almost always responsible for the effects of the defects of products. And this happened after a few disasters that I don't want to go into right now. So when we think about cybersecurity, we need to understand that poor cybersecurity is a defect, much like poor functional safety or FUSA. So having poor cybersecurity in a device that could be subject to malware or to errors during the reprogramming, during the upgrade of the software, is a defect of the product. and the liability goes to the legal entity of the manufacturer of that product, and then down to the people that was acting the wrong way. But defects means also not complying to law, of course, and to not only to law, but also to enforcements. There is the Cybersecurity Act 2019. There is the Delegated Act. We will talk a little bit more later. And there are regulations for approval of road vehicles that will eventually, perhaps in a few years, extend also to off-highway vehicles. So down to the legal side of the last part of my talk, the legal involved when we speak about cybersecurity, this one is related to road vehicles. This is a great news coming from 2019 and now effective for vehicles that are being put on market starting this year. The new general safety regulation has consequences effective July 2022, so in a few months. We have two new regulations that are to be considered when trying to sell vehicles starting July this year. Not try to sell, but try to undergo the homologation of new vehicles. Those two regulations are dedicated to the cybersecurity of new vehicles, new cars, new trucks, new motorcycles, perhaps. So we have a regulation about the cybersecurity of the electronic part of vehicles, and we have a special regulation, the second one, that speaks about the update and upgrade of the software of those vehicles. This is very important. The two regulations refer to the full life cycle of a vehicle and the process, not a special algorithm or a special implementation, but the process of designing the electronic and the software of the vehicle is taken into account. The consequences of the two new regulations are that we now have in place engineering manuals, engineering standards that are very useful, like the 21434 cybersecurity engineering and the 24089 software update engineering that were published. Sorry, the second one is not yet the final version, but there is a draft version which is almost finalized. So we have at least two new engineering standards that can be very useful while designing systems, even if we are not in the domain of road vehicles. This is engineering standards that can be used anywhere. But we also have the Cybersecurity of Connected Devices Delegated Act. This was published October last year. It is an extension and not really an extension, but an evolution of one small part of the Radio Equipment Directive, which is already, of course, effective since 10 years, around 10 years now. And this new delegated act that will be effective 30 months from now, so in about 2 years now, will expand the topic of cybersecurity, which is already inside the RED, to all connected devices. Now there is a discussion around this because the Radio Equipment Directive speaks about equipment which is radio connected to something, not only to the internet. But it is a common understanding that this new delegated act will be effective for any connected device or any device potentially connected to the internet. And again, the consequences of this new directive is that we now have an indication about the usefulness of two different engineering standards. One is the ETSI EN 303, the other one is ESC 62443, and which is a range of indications from the engineering point of view. The first one for consumer Internet of Things, for consumer devices connected to the Internet. And the second one, more interesting in this, for this audience, is the cybersecurity of industrial communication networks, which also can be very useful for connected or potentially connected off-highway vehicles. So, wrap up of everything. I think that I am in time, Mirko, if I understand correctly. And I want just to briefly go through what we have seen here, the purpose of this talk. Yeah, I want to inspire you, hopefully, but you also want to learn a little bit more, hopefully from the Q and answer session. I wanted to introduce cybersecurity as a topic from a generic point of view, but I also wanted to focus on the integrity of the system. Cybersecurity as a way for preventing someone or something, some error, some human error, to break the integrity of the intended behavior of a system. And the third part, I wanted to put down some, not so much in detail, but put down some good reasons for adopting cybersecurity while designing complex electronic systems. The ledger, the money, which is on a balance, the liability, and the topic of the cybersecurity as a defect of a product, and then the law enforcing for cybersecurity, which is coming at a high speed now also to a lot of different products that we are designing today. Okay, so that's all. I think that, Mirko, I put my headphones on so that I can hear you.
Yeah, great. So thank you, Stefano, for your comprehensive presentation. So I encourage our listener to come with some questions for you. In the meantime, to warm it up, I have a question for you, Stefano.
Sure.
So it's a kind of comment more than a question. So regarding cybersecurity, because it looks a little bit, let's say, outside of our standard way of thinking the cybersecurity, and how you present it looks something in the cloud that is not maybe something real. But I was thinking, if considering that most of the people in this call are more or less working on the vehicle area, vehicle space. So if someone like an hacker, for example, is entering and is violating a vehicle intelligence and, let's say, even just stop some vehicles, it can create a big issues, a big troubles, like if it's a fleet, for example, of emergency vehicles. And, you know, now we are in a bad situation, in a bad moment with this war in Ukraine. And can you imagine if there are vehicles like ambulance or kind of other vehicles stopped due a cyber attack? So, and this is kind of real problem. So I want maybe a little bit of comment from you about these real things that are maybe possible to happen.
Yes, there is. We need also to balance a little bit between what's possible and what's really happening. So unfortunately, what's possible is much more, it's much wider than what's actually happening. And the proof of this is that we discovered a few weeks ago that some like thousands of vehicles from Honda in this case, but it's not to blame Honda, of course, are on the market, and I can open all of them at once by using some very simple hardware I have here, and I can do the proof of concept, and it is true. So why is this not happening? It goes down to the balance between what I can do and what I want to do. So do I really want to interfere with an ambulance going on the road? I mean, even if I am a malware, even if I am a bad actor, perhaps I want to do this only in very special situation, which means that cybersecurity is not in place, is not embedded in a lot of different devices, up to 90% of the electronic devices we use every day. And this is not emerging simply because there is no big return, not big gain in interfering with those devices, which doesn't mean that this is not possible anyway. And usually the disaster comes not exactly from an evil actor doing something bad, but from the incident, from something that happens by chance. And this is why it is even more important to do cybersecurity by design, because I don't want something bad to happen because someone wants, but also because someone makes an error, simply like the Owen. This was simply an error on the production plant. Mm-hmm. So if the same happens for a tractor or for I don't know the English, by the way, for Ruspa.
Excavator.
For the excavator. Yeah. If the same happens to an excavator, okay, this is not simply something to smile about, of course.
Yeah. Okay. That's clear. Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, considering that we are almost to the end of.
Sorry, I just want to add something because you were mentioning cybersecurity for cloud stuff. And this is correct. This is something that we have in mind. Cybersecurity is related to the internet and the cloud. But we do software upgrade, for instance, every day when we repair a machine, when we repair a car, when we repair the excavator, we are doing software upgrade, not connected to the internet, not online, but we do it. And so propagating the wrong version of software is even more dangerous than when I'm directly connected to the internet, because this is offline and it might happen 1 year after having done the error.
Yep. Okay. So I think there are not questions, and we are now at the end of our time. So I think we can close here your speech. So thank you very much for being part of this event with us. And we will wait to listen the next Bluewind speech of tomorrow, talking about
functional safety.
Yeah, functional safety.
Functional safety and 26 too, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.